2 days after we buried my grandmother, my father stood in her kitchen and told the family he'd already found a buyer for the bakery. I let him finish the whole pitch. The number, the closing date, the line about doing the smart thing instead of the sentimental thing. Then I set my coffee down on the counter my grandmother had rolled 10,000 loaves of bread across and told him he'd need my signature before anyone touched that building, because Grandma Ruth had made me her business partner 4 years earlier, and nobody in this family had ever bothered to read the paperwork. If you're new here, hit subscribe. I tell a story like this every week, and I'd love to have you back for the next one. Drop the city you're watching from in the comments below. I read every one of them. Now let me take you back to the summer I was 19. The summer that started all of this without me even realizing it. I dropped out of community college that June, not because I'd failed anything, but because I couldn't have told you what I was doing there. My grandmother, Ruth Calder, had run Larkspur Bakery on Main Street in Millbrook, Pennsylvania, since before my father was born. When I showed up at her back door that summer asking if she needed help, she handed me an apron without asking a single question about school. 4:15 in the morning, she said, tying her own apron behind her back. That's when the ovens go on. You want to work here? That's when you get here too. I was there every morning that summer, apron on before the sun was. She taught me how to tell if the oven had come up to temperature by holding my palm a few inches over the rack and counting. If you couldn't hold it past 3 seconds, it was ready. She taught me which corner ran hot and how to work around it instead of fighting it. Most evenings, we'd sit on the 2 stools behind the register with day-old cinnamon rolls, and she'd tell me about the winter the pipes froze, and she baked by camp stove rather than close for even one morning. This place doesn't run on love, Josie, she told me once, wiping flour off her hands with a dish towel. It runs on whoever's willing to get up before the sun. That's the only test that matters here. Not who shares my last name, who's willing to do the work when nobody's watching. I was 19. I thought she was just talking about work ethic. Home was a different kind of tired. My dad, Tom, ran an auto shop 2 towns over that had been bleeding customers to the new dealership on Route 30 for years. My mom, Renee, worked the front desk at a pediatric office and came home most nights already worn through. My little brother Eli was 12 that summer, young enough that nobody expected much of him yet, which meant he got a kind of benefit of the doubt I never seemed to get. At dinner, when I mentioned picking up more hours at the bakery instead of going back to school in the fall, my dad didn't look up from his plate. That place doesn't make real money, Josie. Grandma's been running it like a hobby for 40 years. Go back to school? Get a degree that actually means something. I didn't argue. I just kept showing up at 4:15 anyway, on top of 2 classes I never did end up dropping, because quitting either one felt like giving away a piece of myself I wasn't ready to lose. My dad's shop kept sliding. I didn't know the specifics then, only that there were more hushed phone calls, more mail he opened, standing at the counter and folded back into its envelope before anyone could ask. What I did notice, because I was at the bakery almost every day, was that people had started talking about Larkspur differently. Not Grandma's place anymore. The property, the building, the corner lot. The summer I turned 21, Grandma called me into the back office after close. She had a folder on the desk and her reading glasses pushed up into her hair. "I can't pay you what you're worth," she said. "Not with what this block costs now in taxes, but I can give you something better than a raise if you're willing to let me." She walked me through it slowly, the way she walked me through everything, checking I understood each piece before moving to the next. Instead of a raise the bakery couldn't afford, she was converting 3 years of what she called my sweat equity into an actual ownership stake in Larkspur Bakery, LLC, a real percentage filed with an attorney, recorded with the state, binding whether I stayed 1 more summer or 30 more years. "It's not a gift," she said, sliding the folder toward me. "You earned every point of it, standing at that oven at 4 in the morning. I only just now got around to making it official. I signed where her attorney, a sharp, unhurried woman named Diane Holt, had flagged with little yellow tabs. It felt more like a retirement account than anything that mattered right then. I filed the folder in a drawer in my apartment and mostly forgot about it, the way you forget a seed you planted in the fall. I didn't know it yet, but I owned 45% of my grandmother's bakery. She owned the other 55, and she was already thinking hard about what would happen to her share once she was gone. Grandma got sick 2 years later, that November. Slow at first, then not slow at all. I picked up more shifts. My father started coming around more too, which should have felt like comfort, and instead felt like something I couldn't quite name yet. I heard him on the phone with his sister, my Aunt Pam, from the hallway outside Grandma's hospital room. Pam ran economic development for the county and had spent 2 years quietly courting a boutique hotel chain to invest in Main Street. She had a way of talking about that deal like it was the achievement she'd been building her whole career toward. Birchgate wants the whole block if they can get it, she was saying. Larkspur's lot alone could be worth more than the shops brought in the last 10 years combined, Tommy. You know that. We'll see, my dad said. Not now, Pam. Not now didn't sound like never. It sounded like a date he just hadn't picked yet. Have you ever found out someone believed in you long before you believed in yourself? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear that one. Grandma Ruth passed on a Sunday in March, the radio playing low in her hospital room, my hand in hers. The funeral was small. The reception was at my parents' house. And that's where we are now, catching up to where I started this story. My father, 2 days later, standing in Grandma's own kitchen, announcing the sale like it was a formality already settled. Aunt Pam had already walked Birchgate's team through the building twice. Their number was good, she said. Better than good. Enough to clear the shop's debt and then some, enough to finally set my dad up clean. Pam's already got them ready to sign, my dad told the room, like he was doing us all a favor. This isn't easy, but it's the responsible thing. Larkspur can finally help this family the way it should have been able to for years. I want to keep it, I said. Josie, sweetheart, I know you loved working there, but it's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You need my signature. I own 45% of that bakery. Grandma made me a partner 4 years ago. The kitchen went quiet enough that I could hear the refrigerator humming. That's not possible, Aunt Pam said first, setting her coffee down with too much precision. Ruth would have mentioned that. She did mention it. To me, 4 years ago. Ask Diane Holt if you don't believe me. My dad's voice came out low, almost hurt, which was rich considering what he'd just tried to do without asking me anything at all. You've owned part of that building for 4 years and never said a word? I didn't fully understand what I had until 3 weeks ago, I said, and that part was true. Deb, who'd worked the counter at Larkspur longer than I'd been alive, had pulled me aside the week after the funeral. Baby, she'd said, you ought to go dig out that folder Ruth had you sign a while back. I think you own more of this place than you know. I'd sat in Diane Holt's office 2 days later, while she explained exactly what 45%, properly filed and recorded, meant. Any sale of the LLC's real property requires consent from members holding a controlling interest, Diane told me. Your grandmother built it that way on purpose. I asked her once why she didn't just leave you the whole thing in her will instead. She said outright gifts get contested. Ownership you already hold doesn't. My dad tried anyway. 2 weeks later, Birchgate's title company ran their standard search before closing and found my membership interest recorded clean with the state. Their attorney called Aunt Pam directly. I heard about it from Deb before I heard it from my own family. Birchgate walked, found a different block outside town to build on instead. 2 years of courting them, gone in an afternoon. Word travels fast in a town the size of Millbrook. And Pam spent that whole summer explaining to the county board why the deal she'd promised them had fallen apart. My dad never got sued, never made the local paper, never lost anything but the easy way out. He went back to the bank with nothing to offer, but a repayment plan and an apology, which, from what I hear, is exactly what he got. I found Grandma's letter in May, tucked inside her recipe box between the index cards, for her cinnamon rolls and her Sunday bread. Her handwriting was smaller than I remembered, tired near the bottom of the page the way it got in her last year. She wrote that she knew exactly what her son would try to do the moment she was gone, and that she didn't hold it against him. A man scared about money does scared things, she wrote. That doesn't make him a bad man, just a frightened one. She wrote that she hadn't chosen me because I was anyone's favorite. She chose me because in 4 years, I never once asked her what the bakery was worth. I only ever asked her what needed fixing. The last line said, "The people who earn a place here are the ones who never once slept through the sunrise. You never did. This is yours now. Go on waking up for it." I sat on the flour-dusted stool behind the register and cried for a while. Not the kind of crying that wrecks you, the kind that just needed to happen. Eli came by on a Sunday afternoon in June, 16 now, taller than me, carrying a box of donuts from somewhere that wasn't ours, which made me laugh despite myself. I didn't know any of it either, he said, sitting up on the counter the way Grandma always told him not to. Mom and Dad never told me what they were planning. I know, Eli. Are you and Dad ever going to be okay? I thought about it honestly before I answered. I don't know yet, but I'm not shutting the door. I just need him to understand I'm not going anywhere either. He nodded, the way 16-year-olds do when they're taking something seriously, maybe, for the first time. Can I work here this summer? Not for the money, just to learn it. 4:15, I told him. That's when the ovens go on. My dad and I met at Larkspur the following week, before opening. Just the two of us. The ovens warming. The smell of yeast starting to fill the room the way it did every single morning of my childhood, whether I was paying attention to it or not. I love you, I told him. That's not in question. But if we're going to have any relationship going forward, it has to be built on you respecting what's actually mine, not on what you think you're owed, because you're my father. He looked at the counter for a long time. I don't know how to be the kind of man Grandma thought I should be, he finally said. You could start by asking me questions. Instead of making announcements, I said. He almost smiled at that. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even close, but it was a start. And I decided a start was worth having. It's 5 a.m. now, and I'm standing in the exact spot my grandmother stood in for 40 years, waiting on the ovens to finish preheating. The lights are still off along the rest of Main Street. Millbrook is asleep. In about 20 minutes, Eli is going to walk through that back door for his first real shift, and I'm going to teach him the same test my grandmother taught me. Palm over the rack, count to 3. I didn't win anything by keeping this bakery. There's no trophy for holding onto something that should never have been for sale in the first place. But I kept a promise I didn't even know I'd made until it mattered, and I'm standing somewhere that's actually mine, not because I fought dirty, but because someone who loved me made sure I'd have solid ground to stand on long before I knew I'd need it. If someone in your life ever quietly believed in you before you believed in yourself, I want to know about it. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story stayed with you, share it with somebody who needs to hear it today. I'm building second chapter stories one story at a time, and if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you here for the next one. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next story.